Number of Democrats, from lawmakers and big donors to regular voters, say it's time for President Biden to step aside for a younger candidate to take on former President Donald Trump. But with the president appearing at the annual NATO summit and preparing for his press conference later on today, many wonder what's going on behind the scenes.
Yeah, we're joined now by someone who can help piece together perhaps what is happening. We welcome Chris Whipple to the show, who corresponded with Biden and interviewed his closest friends for his 2023 biography, The Fight of His Life. So honored to have you on the show in a moment like this. Absolutely. So in a recent interview, you called this the most scripted White House in modern history and claimed you could only get to Biden through written questions and answers. What takeaway do you get from that, in addition to that, compared to his predecessors from both parties? He does not do the sit-down interviews a lot. He does not like news conferences like the one he's about to give later today. What do you make of all that, and what should voters take away from that?
Well, look, I think every White House reporter would tell you that this is one of the most battened down, buttoned up, on-script White Houses in recent history, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, it's one of the reasons that this White House was so effective in passing bipartisan legislation. Ron Klain ran a tight ship as White House Chief of Staff. But it's also true that, look, I was able to interview almost all of Biden's inner circle. Often they spoke out of school and went off script for my book, The Fight of His Life, inside Joe Biden's White House. For the president, the understanding, the agreement was that I would submit written questions and get written answers. Obviously, you know, I pushed back on that and wanted to be in the room, but I was told, no, look, this is the most we can do. Now, you can draw your own conclusions. Either they were worried about Joe Biden going off script or perhaps not being on top of his game, or that's just the way they operate.
And to point out, we just had a radio host in Philadelphia who lost her job, resigned, but okay. After the White House said, here's 8 questions, ask these, and that didn't sit well, and she lost her job because of that, because that is an ethical lapse in journalism.
Right, and so there's been a lot of conversation too. I mean, even when watching the debate, you know, we talk about his stutter, his speech impediment, and the social anxiety that he has as well when it comes to these press conferences and these debates. And it's kind of a known thing that he has never really performed very well at these types of events. So how much is it, you know, an age and mental acuity thing, but also a speech impediment and battling that, and also social anxiety that people can kind of relate to a little bit better?
Yeah. Look, I think we've all watched, we know Joe Biden's story. We know the history of his speech impediment and how he's managed to, for the most part, to overcome that. We've seen him in press conferences, including a really long one early in his presidency where he went over an hour. Frankly, did pretty well. I happen to think that the unscripted Joe Biden is pretty effective, and we need to see a lot more of him. I think the mystery is what happened the night of the debate. I can tell you that there was drama even within the family that night. I mean, real consternation and finger pointing at the debate prep team. But look, that was not a debate prep problem. That was something serious going on with Joe Biden. And I don't think anybody, including his good friend Chris Coons, who was just on a few minutes ago, very few people have seen that happen, and we need to get to the bottom of it, I think.
I mean, I've heard analysts really describe it as perhaps the worst presidential debate performance ever.
Right.
and you know, there may be truth to that. Look at the fallout. You wrote that one of Biden's...
Well, I would agree with that. You know, this was not Ronald Reagan in 1984, who had a tough first round and came back and really nailed Walter Mondale with that zinger about his age. It was not Barack Obama in 2012 when he had a bad first outing against Mitt Romney. But look, Biden has one more debate in September. He'll be there for sure. He has to be there.
Yeah. It wasn't a bad night. It was a meltdown. And George Clooney's piece, to me, the most damaging part of that was when he referenced the fundraiser and said the Biden that was there tonight, the fundraiser was the same kind of Biden we got on stage that night, because that undercuts the entire White House story that, oh, it was just a rough night.
He was
but
sick.
other people have he was sick. He's seen this behavior before. So along those same lines, you wrote that one of Biden's friends recommended that he take a neurological exam, and a political scientist on Scripps News, our other show, The Race, said there was even concern over Biden's ability to present the Medal of Freedom on Tuesday, the physical presentation of the medal. Let's listen in.
At the moment that President Biden had to do the clasp, there's a collective gasp in the audience, and everyone that's watching it there, everyone that's watching it from home, is suddenly just thinking to themselves, oh my God, can he do it?
I'm wondering what you make of that.
Frankly, I think that's a little bit silly, to be honest with you. I mean, look, he was fumbling with the clasp, so what? Does that mean that he's, mentally incompetent? I don't think so.
Okay. My wife says, take my necklace off. It takes me 20 minutes. So and I'm not 81.
Yes.
Okay, so let's be honest here. One of the reasons I like talking to not politicians is that we can kind of talk human for a second. And you know this guy, you know his world. And what is your take on what do you know is happening in the inner circle right now? Because the narrative is that it's a very tight-knit circle of people saying, including his wife, run, Joe, run, you can do this. And he's not listening to a wide circle. He's not paying attention to the polls. He doesn't care about the Capitol Hill chatter. Who's in his head right now, and do ultimately you think he will step down?
Look, it's a very tight inner circle, and they've been with him for decades, and they all share this sort of worldview that Joe Biden has been knocked down time and time again. He's been underestimated time after time after time. They've often been right. He was declared dead after Iowa in 2020. Again after New Hampshire, and he came back. So, the inner circle shares that. I think that for Joe Biden to step aside would require a kind of high-powered intervention consisting of family and close friends. It would probably take Jill Biden, Hunter Biden, his sister Val, perhaps his close friend Ted Kaufman, throw in Mike Donilon, his closest advisor. And on top of that, I think you would need Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer and Jim Clyburn. I mean, it would be, you'd need a really high-powered delegation to persuade Biden to step aside. And I don't see that coming together, at least not at the moment.
Well, given that, then, if he does continue, which all signs point to the fact that he is, and he loses to Trump in November, what does that do to his legacy, decades serving?
Well, it'd be horrific. And I think that Biden was rightly excoriated for that answer he gave George Stephanopoulos about, hey, I'll be happy if I give it the good old college try. That's not enough. He's got to win this. These stakes are existential. I think Joe Biden knows that. I know he knows that. I know he believes that he is the guy to beat Trump. And, frankly, when Joe Biden famously said at one point that he would be a transitional figure, a bridge to the next generation, suggesting that he might be a one-term president. I think what changed was that Joe Biden thought Donald Trump would be in the rearview mirror by now. The thing that shocked him more than anything else in his presidency was the lasting power of Trumpism and MAGA. I think it surprised him that he's still around and he's still a threat to democracy. And Joe Biden honestly believes in his bones that he's the guy to beat him. And despite the debate, it's fascinating to me that there's a poll out today that has them in a dead heat.
It feels personal. Right. Between these two. They don't like each other, and Joe Biden really wants to beat Donald Trump once and for all. The polls just aren't on his side right now. Do you also think the Democratic Party, well, after 50 years in politics, it's a little disturbing to me that he wouldn't recognize the staying power of MAGA and Trumpism. To me, it's obvious and has been obvious now for the better part of a decade. But in terms of the transitional president, meaning one term, did the Democratic Party not hold his feet to the fire on that issue. Trump was early out of the gate to announce. The thing was November of 22, and no one got in his way. So that was the first sign. That would have been the more appropriate time for the discussion we're having now, not less than 4 months till Election Day. What's more at fault, the hubris of anyone who's president or the party for not saying, hey, Joe, let's have a talk 2 years ago?
Well, you know, this is not 1968 or 1974 anymore. I mean, this is not, and who is the party? Joe Biden essentially is the party because he has all the delegates. He won them fair and square in the primaries. The DNC, the Democratic National Committee, is pretty much allied with him. And so there is, you know, there's this mythical notion that these elders will come to Joe Biden and say, sorry, Joe, but it's time for you to step aside. The fact is that Joe Biden really has, if this is the highest possible stakes poker, Joe Biden has the stronger hand.
Just by the math of the delegates and the power of incumbency. And how close we are to November.
That's correct.
Yeah. I could talk to you for the entire 17-hour duration.
But if we
this
hear
morning
rap
show.
one more time.
But I'm sure you have other media requests, and you're a busy guy. This was a really instructive conversation. I'm so glad you were able to come on the show. Chris, thank you so much for your time.
Great.
And please come back.
Sure.
Yeah.
Please come back. In other news, a scathing new